This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
All right, sunny and sticky in Minneapolis and St. Paul. It's Nordo in for PA. Vocal maintenance days continue. We're about a week from players reporting from Minnesota Vikings training camp in Eagan. And so the host needs a breather. There's no doubt about that. So it's Nordo in for PA. Brett Blakemore produces. And in studio, some bonus Cory Cove.
Are you sure you want to do this?
I think I do, as a matter of fact.
Are you sure Abbott knows what this first segment's going to be? Because he's going to kill you, and then he's going to rip the hell out of me.
Yeah, he's going to talk some trash about it. But I will tell you this. Yesterday, I returned from 4 days up at the lake. And I get a text message. I'm still trying to organize my house and just kind of get things back to good again and get comfy at home. And I get a text from Abbott. Hey guys, this time of year, I was watching this thing on the 4-letter network and they were doing this list. Why don't you guys do more of that this time of year?
Lists?
He actually told me.
He wants list radio?
He wants lists.
That's old school power trip. 20 years ago, we did lists 90% of our shows. We moved on from those.
Yes, you have. We all evolved.
We did a lot of lists.
But think about
a lot of lists.
And he did a lot of brackets. He did a lot of lists.
Yep, a lot of phone calls. Remember those? We did those.
But you're looking at this time of year, the entire sports world for the most part is grinded to a halt. And in the corner office, you're just I'm looking for water in the desert here, Chad. Mm-hmm. Lists.
Yep.
So I actually found one yesterday, and we're going to milk the bleep out of that thing. But
can't wait.
To this end, Cory Cove is in studio. First of all, congratulations once again. This is the first time I saw you since you returned from Vegas. Congratulations on cashing in the tourney, man. That's awesome.
Thanks. And it's like, I think it was like 17 Minnesotans cashed. And, I basically got one step up from a min cash. It's not like a, world record accomplishment. I just personally needed to get over the hump because I was 0 for 4.
Yeah.
So it was big for me, but there's so many Minnesotans that have done what I did. Finishing 1253 in the main is super cool, but it's not like groundbreaking. I just mentally it's a tournament that's set up for my game so perfectly. Thank you. So I just was very frustrated that I was 0 for 4. Needed it big time.
No, but the Minnesota poker community is actually a lot stronger, I think, than maybe some people understand, whether it's via Canterbury, it's up at Running Aces.
Oh, boy.
A ton of representation from Minnesotans like you. And you mentioned 17 of them, it got into the money.
I think it was 17-ish or so, yep.
So the final table is set. And
tonight, can't wait. It's my Super Bowl, man. It's my favorite night of the year, and I'm not even exaggerating. I would rather watch this than the Super Bowl, than the Masters, and the NCAA tournament. This is my thing.
Well, Chad Abbott actually had me make sure I include this in my notes. It's not the November 9 anymore, right? So they're just going to, I think it starts streaming this afternoon.
Yeah, they had one day off. They basically played essentially 8 days. They get yesterday off, and now it's 2 nights to wrap it up. So $10 million up top.
Oh, how about that? It's going to be a nice hit.
Everybody's guaranteed $1 million.
And there's a couple names in there that I want to get to, but to this end, to this specifically, the reason I texted you and asked you to join was I was watching I was overseeing a bit of a melodrama over the weekend, and it comes into marketing, it comes into the WSOP and just the medium, the game itself wanting to grow, of course, and as many eyeballs on it as possible. That's a good thing. But this guy intrigues me. Some dude named Will Kassouf. He finished 33rd in the main event. So good for him. That's got to be $300,000-$400,000 for him.
Something like that. I think it was 300. Yep.
Congratulations. Well, then he was immediately banned.
Good.
From the remainder of any WSOP festivity. I don't even know how many events. Feels like 100+ different events.
Yeah, there's a handful left.
Okay, so he's out of those. Well, why was he banned? And then I want to dig into how they really handled him throughout the tournament. Loud, boisterous, won't stop talking on the offense, so to speak, verbally at every single turn. I saw him in just about, I'd say, 2 out of 3 various social media videos that were popping up from table situations in various hands. It was Will Kassouf. And then he's been clocked. He's got this 1-round penalty coming his way. What's up with Will Kassouf? What happened?
All right, so 20 years ago when the poker boom started, post Moneymaker, there were characters, right? There were personalities that when it was on ESPN and it was mainstream, it's not mainstream anymore. Now it's on this Poker Go app. You really have to search for it. You have to be a fan of poker. So the days of it hitting the mainstream is essentially,
Abbott loves this.
That's what you get, man.
Lists, Abbott, lists.
Yeah. The days of the mainstream, I think, are essentially over. But to grow poker, characters are definitely needed because there are a bunch of robots now because everybody plays what's called GTO, Game Theory Optimal, where they're studying solvers, they're running hands through computer programs to figure out the optimal way to play. So everybody's trying to be as perfect as possible, which is really kind of, I don't know, it's geeking out the game.
Does it suck the soul out of it a little bit?
A little bit, but it's just, so there's fewer and fewer characters than there used to be.
Yeah.
So sure, characters are good for the game. This ain't it. This guy sucks. He is terrible for poker. I'm so glad they treated him like crap because he was given 1,000 warnings. He was super rude to the floor. He's rude to other players, never stops talking, which is not against the rules. You can talk all you want. Can't be abusive. There's an unwritten rule in poker, though, that if you look down at your hand and you have no decision to make, right? You look down and it's Queen 2 offsuit. You're supposed to, as quickly as possible, look at your cards and move on. You just fold. If I look down and it's Queen Jack suited and there's a raise and a re-raise in front of me, do I have 20 or 30 seconds to look around the table, assess stacks, assess my position in the tournament, the whole bit? Of course, right? That's so you're supposed to be able to think about a hand if you actually have a decision to make. He waits and talks for 30 to 3 minutes, 30 seconds to 3 minutes on every street of every hand. And he's terrible for the game. And I think what people are losing sight of when some poker players are like, what is he doing that's against the rules? How about just the guy's a terrible dude and he's an a-hole.
Yeah.
And let's not reward an a-hole for acting like an a-hole. So I think he's terrible for the game. I think he's terrible to watch. I thought it was exhausting. I couldn't wait for him to be out. I was obviously back from Vegas by the time he got knocked out, but I heard that the entire room in Paris, applauded when they saw on the big screen that he got knocked out. Everybody in the horseshoe was singing goodbye to him.
Oh, come on.
It was universally.
So he's that well disliked.
Yeah, he leaned into the villain role. And again, he got his name's bigger now, but I just think he's terrible for the sport. Conversely, again, we have a female now at the final table. I was just talking to Marnie about this. It's the opposite. I think that's the best thing possible for poker is we need a woman to not only make the final table, which she did, first one in 30 years and first one really ever, if you ask me, because post Moneymaker, it's just different.
Yeah.
Now that there's 10,000 players, not 200.
Yeah, the previous female, there was 250, 350
or something like that in 1995. Super cool that she made it 30 years ago.
Which was basically every tournament until...
Yes. But to get through 10,000 is giant for her, and she's no joke. She's a pro. I think it would be awesome if somebody like her found a way to win the whole thing and win 10 mil. It would have been a disaster if Will Kassouf would have found a way to the final table and won this thing. That would have sucked.
Yeah, he seems like a jackass. So I have nothing 10. in the mix. So I'm happy that we're moving on from him. But when you talk about marketing and growing the game and needing personalities, I do think you mentioned Moneymaker specifically because he was a pillar as part of that movement. The Phil Ivies, the Negranus, these are people when I was casually watching, and then I'd go online
and
at
still
night,
huge factors,
and I'd lose half my paycheck on sit and goes and stuff like a complete idiot.
The best.
Those were kind of the names. Where are the name cachet? Where are those individuals now?
Still there. Some of the big names you remember from 20 years ago are still around. Phil Ivey is still widely considered one of the best players on the planet and maybe the best player of all time. Negreanu's in that conversation. Phil Hellmuth still finds a way to win bracelets once in a while. There are a lot of those names are still hanging on, but a lot of the guys back, if you watched the World Poker Tour 20 years ago, some of the big characters were just gamblers. But now that the game has evolved, because the game changes, every 4 or 5 years, it kind of turns over and somebody kind of cracks a code and the game changes, which it doesn't feel like it should because it's just cards.
Yeah.
But somebody realizes, we've been playing this wrong or not optimally. So then betting sizes change, theories change, strategies change. It's just, it evolves. Some of those guys that were big deals 20 years ago have fallen off. while some of those guys I just mentioned have continued to like study and learn and pay attention, and they're still big factors.
How much in the big tournament here? How much rubidity goes into how much catching a card wave? I mean, in terms from a skill standpoint, I'm obviously I'm not daft to the idea you survive 10,000 people. That's high end, and you found your way there. It couldn't have just been elite hand after elite hand after elite hand. It's an absolute grind. But how much of that specifically in the early stages can someone survive kind of just being a rope, kind of just sticking around? You catch a nice little wave, a nice little streak, and find yourself into day 3 or day 4.
So here's a couple things I learned about making the money for the first time. I lasted 4 days, right? I was, by the way, everything I'm about to say is going to be borderline preposterous statement tournament, so buckle up.
Perfect. Abbott loves it.
But I just lived it, so this is the truth. I can't believe how mentally and physically exhausting it is. And you're going to say, well, like, you're sitting at a poker table. How exhausting can it be?
Yeah.
It's not even necessarily about that. It's you start at noon every day. You play 2-hour levels, and then you get a 20-minute break. So by the time you bag for the end of the day, it's almost 1 a.m. So it's about a 13-hour day. Well, by the time you bag and then walk back to your hotel room, still got adrenaline going, right? You were just laser focused if you're playing well. So I had a hard time falling asleep because I'm tossing and turning. Plus, you're kind of excited that you bagged on day 1.
Yeah.
Then you bagged on day 2. Then you
still
bagged on
alive.
day 3. Right. So you get the adrenaline going. I bet I averaged 4 or 5 hours a night of bad sleep.
Ugh.
Then you wake up and it's Groundhog Day and you do it again. So I can't even imagine what the people that have played 8 days went through, because at the end of 4 days, I'm like, this is exhausting. So that's number one. It's a lot harder than people think to play well for as long as these players that have made it to the final 9 have. Short-term variance is everything in poker, right? The worst player on the planet can bag a huge stack on any given day just because they luck into it. I'll give you my quick story. My 2 big hands that went the wrong way were self-inflicted. I made a massive mistake on day 2 that cost me about half my stack. And then I made a massive mistake on day 3 that cost me about half my stack. Both just because I got stubborn. It wasn't that I didn't assess the situation. It's like, man, I just got really I'm going to draw a line in the sand and I'm just going to get stubborn. So I didn't get really unlucky the entire tournament. I just made 2 pretty stubborn rookie mistakes. So you have to last as far as these final 9 have. You have to play super well. You have to run super hot for at least 1 or 2 or 3 multiple times. I mean, what's the point? I have so much respect for these people that got this far. I think it's awesome. It's an absolute grind. So your long-winded way of answering your question. Luck is a giant factor in any given tournament. You can't get to the final 9 without luck, but these players are also incredibly talented.
So what does growing the game look like? I mean, let's take Will Kassouf out of the mix. We add personalities for the idea of getting more eyeballs. What does that lead to then? What does that? I mean, the main event seems like it has continued to really precipitously grow. Does that mean more purses? That the whatever 10% is getting paid? That the min cash is 25 instead of 15. What does that lead to if we're thinking about adding personalities to the game and growing the game of poker? Because I feel like the accessibility of poker is still high end. The rubes like me are still going to play in basement little home games and think that we could do it at the Rio or wherever it is now. But in the end, I don't know what growing the game looks like.
You love soccer, right?
Yeah.
Brett loves soccer.
I try not to admit that in public, but I do.
But you guys are both soccer guys, so you guys can both understand exactly what I'm going to say. At some point, you just have to admit that there is a ceiling, right? Where you guys can love soccer, you can follow soccer, you can go to the United games, you can jump all in on MLS, but it's probably very likely in our lifetime never going to be a major 4, right? It's niche. I'm not delusional about poker.
What?
It's super, super, super niche. So again, even if Leo Marguerite wins tomorrow, and is the first woman to ever win, I think it's going to be great for the poker industry. I don't think it's going to make us go mainstream. I think the boom has already come and gone.
Okay.
I think everybody that plays poker loves poker, and you can find the game organically. I don't think, now that it's not on ESPN, I think fewer people care, which is why this segment makes me laugh.
Can you gamble? I haven't looked at it in a long time. Can you do the online gambling for money in the United States?
You mean like online poker?
Yeah.
In a lot of states you can.
You can now
and
again?
in a lot of states like Minnesota, you just need a VPN to make it look like you're in Canada or Mexico.
Oh, okay. All right. Perfect. Last thing for you. You want to talk about mistakes. I saw this guy. This is another personality. And I just need your thought on this. Eric Afriat.
Yep.
I'm probably mispronouncing the name. I think he folded a full house.
Yeah.
And this was another guy, not full on. He didn't go full Will Kassouf, but kind of an ass at the table.
Yep.
And there were tons of stories coming out. He's threatening to fight people after getting knocked out of previous tournaments and stuff. Kind of a surly dude. He gets the trips right out of the gate. And I didn't see what the betting sequence is. But then it's 8, King 8, 9, 6, I believe. River's the full house. He bets. Dude raises him. And based on that, I can't see a scenario in which it was only a quarter of his stack ultimately in the end. If he had lost and called the bet, he folds a freaking full house.
Which every player in the world has done, right? Everybody's folded full houses. But it's like you just said, it's very likely he just misread his hand and didn't notice that he had made a full house.
Isn't that a moment to be stubborn?
Yep. You're allowed to relook at your cards, especially when you're down to at that point, he was down to the final, I don't know, 100 or 2 players. This is the real deal. There's huge money up top. You better know what your freaking cards are. That's a rookie mistake.
Unbelievable. Thanks for hanging out with me.
So how many more segments are we going?
Are you cool for the first hour?
Do you want me to talk about 3 betting strategy out of the small blind, or is that just for a separate podcast, or how are we going to do that?
I don't even know what that meant, but I want to know everything about the 5 Americans that are going to be at the table. We're going to, of course, appeal to the ladies with Margette's, who's in the mix here. So if you got another 45 minutes, I'd love to go deep diving on 3 betting, upcoming tournaments, all of those things, bracelets and cash.
You guys want to come over and watch the final table the next 2 nights?
I'm pretty busy, actually.
Brett, no?
Brett's got some free time.
That's all I've got.
What the hell's that supposed to mean?
Well, now he brings snacks. He's a great party guest, I tell you.
What if it's like, when we do state fair shows, my dad every year will call me and he's like, well, you guys referenced a lot of stuff that was at the state fair that I couldn't see. So he's like, I don't really know who that show is for. And I go, yeah, what do I care? It's 7 to 9 p.m. It's not my time slot. It's not my ratings. I don't care if the show sucks.
Correct.
It's just for fun. That's how I felt about the last 17 minutes. This is 9 to noon. This is your problem. This is PA's problem.
It is.
If everybody tuned out right now, or if everybody that started the podcast was like, oh my God, Nordo started with poker.
Yeah.
What do I care? It doesn't affect my life in any way. As you know this.
I can tell you from the last 12 years, Q3 has started off slow.
Is that right?
Almost every single year, in fact.
But
we're trying to get to camp.
If you walk down the hall and just go, hey, anybody here want to talk about Dave Matthews? It's also be like, yeah, right? If you a day or so ago were like, hey, you want to talk poker at 9:00 on Tuesday? I'm like, in.
Yeah.
I texted you back within 0.7 seconds.
You couldn't wait.
Well, it's all I think about, all I talk about. I listen to podcasts on a weekly basis, the Suited Kings podcast, the Poker Guys podcast. It's like my entire life. So if somebody's like, hey, I want to talk poker, I'm like, I will stop anything to discuss the game of poker. So I don't care if I bored the audience. Not my problem. It's yours.
Not my problem either.
It's the best, dude. I can't wait for tonight. It's going to be awesome.
No,
life-changing money for all 9.
Hell yeah. And I appreciate it because, again, I could beat you in a $20 little home game in a basement.
100%.
I know, we all throw it in. Mm-hmm. But over the course, like you talked about that grind, it is really fascinating to me. I've never took the investment that you have to it, but I love watching it. And I'm glad the November 9 thing and all that, I'm glad to know I can just stream that thing tonight. And I don't have to freaking wait.
Well, and the chip leader tonight's an amateur. So everything you just said, everything we just talked about in the last 20 minutes, if you and I played right now, of course you could beat me. If you and Phil Hellmuth played right now, you could beat him, right? But if you played him every day for the next year, I'm betting my house you can't beat him.
It's a good bet.
And that's that's the beauty of tonight, though, is if they played this tournament 1,000 times, I think the guy that's in the lead would win it. I don't want to say the least amount because he has the most chips, but he would not be the guy who wins it the most.
Right.
But over the next 2 nights, if things go his way, like they did on day 8, because a lot of things went his way when he was short, anything can happen. So the worst player of the 9 can win. The best player of the 9 can win. It's the variance. But, man, all 9 of them earned it. Can't wait.
Have you ever talked about poker for this long in one segment during your show?
I think on iHeartMedia would have had to have a press release about the suicides of multiple members of the Power Trip Morning Show if we talked for 23 straight minutes about poker.
Oh, thanks, brother, for your time, man. I do appreciate it. That's Cory Cove, and that kicks off the TimberTech set list 9 to noon. Yes, we got through it. We talked about poker this morning. Fascinated me. I hope it fascinates you. TimberTech brings you the 9 to noon set list each and every day. Lavelle Neal III's in studio at 11. The Potpourri segment with the columnist, of course. Dan Hayes, who covers the Minnesota Twins for The Athletic, he joins at 10. And whether it's Buxton in the Derby last night, we got Buck and JoJo today, Joe Ryan in the MLB All-Star Game, Twins at the break and maybe on the brink. We're going to talk all about that with Dan Hayes at 10. Got some Vikes Bites in the mix and a mandatory list. I'm excited for all of it with Brett Blakemore producing. It's Nordo in for PA on the Fan, and I believe we have a cash thing.
We do. The Fan at BigDeck.com. I'm going to give you a shot to win bonus bucks with the National Cash Contest. Head to KFAN.com. The keyword is green. Keyword green, KFAN.com. Keyword green.
I've got Dan Morgan here on the pod. Say hi, Dan.
Hey, how's it going today?
It's going good, man. Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Dan Morgan. I'm an attorney and a managing partner at Morgan & Morgan, which is America's largest injury law firm.
That's pretty awesome. I think I saw a billboard of yours recently that said 20 billion won. 20 billion is an insane number.
Yeah, 20 billion recovered. It's actually, I think, somewhere north, probably closer to 22, 23 after this year. And each year we get bigger and badder and our army grows. So the number will hopefully keep getting bigger and bigger as time goes on.
Awesome. So how does someone get in contact with Morgan & Morgan? What would I do if I got into an accident?
Probably the easiest way is dialing pound law. That's pound 529 from your cell phone. We are always open. Our call center is always waiting to take your call. 24/7, 365.
Wow. Dan Morgan from Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. Thanks for coming by the show.
Thanks for having me.
Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
Fan.
America's mystery cards are back, and we're bringing them to you all summer long. Come grab yours at KFAN events throughout the summer, wherever you see our KFAN street team. Then make sure to redeem them at Mall of America for fun prizes and big discounts. Full list of events, KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Good morning, Brett.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Nordo in for PA, Brett Blakemore producing on a Tuesday morning. Sunny and sticky. Sunny and sticky outside in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. I mentioned it, I joked about it, but it wasn't a joke. They had the head coach of our particular operation, Chad Abbott. Greg Swedberg would be the general manager. And Lonnie'd be, I don't know if he does it all. Is he the finance guy? He's the executive. He owns the team. We'll put him in that perspective. The head coach yesterday, I'm just trying to get settled in at home. This time of year, guys, there's a lot of things that'll be cliche for about 11 months out of the year, but I was watching this. They had this list, and they were able to get like a ton of time out of it. And so I was immediately thinking to myself, like, well, I listen to the Grum every single day. I know how this works. So we will eventually get to Vikes Bites and some other things. Specifically, and I know you have this in the list, maybe we'll start on this next hour, is Jordan Addison. His jury trial stemming from the DUI citation. I'm reading this from Mr. Seifert, Kevin Seifert, ESPN. Vikings wide receiver Jordan Addison's jury trial stemming from his 2024 DUI citation remains set for today in Superior Court of California. Jordan Addison has pled not guilty as part of that. So there's a suspension on the line. There's the balance of, well, we want people to be held accountable for the mistakes that they have made or not made. And we want people to have the opportunity to a fair trial. And that's, it sounds like, going to lift off today. And I got at least one X post on it, and somebody was texting me, do I know what the circumstances of it are? I must admit, other than knowing that he's been accused of the blood alcohol concentration being above 0.08, I know that he was found asleep at the wheel. That's not ideal. Near LAX, I know those things, much like you do. But in the particulars of him pleading not guilty, I'm not necessarily aware of what the angle is there. Now, if he was to be found not guilty, then and acquitted of these, I believe there are a couple of misdemeanor charges, then you would assume he is not suspended. If he is found guilty, then I think it's, baseline, let's call it 3 games. The implication of that, those are things that we will dig into, certainly, but until then, he still has to actually go to trial. So that's where we sit there. So in terms of the talkability in totality, the 1,000-foot view of it, he's going to have his day in court, and we appreciate that aspect of the process, a fair trial indeed. So we'll get into that during Vikes Bites, maybe the mishmash with Mr. Lavelli Neal III. But as part of the head coach putting us on the Abyss list, it's management mandated. He asked for it.
I think it's a great play call.
Which was kind of an odd thing. When you're looking for leadership and you're looking for bits and ideas from the office, let's spice it up a bit, okay? Sports world, grinding halt. It's that time of year. All-Star game today. Several-day break. Maybe we'll catch up. With a Twins geek. We'll catch up with a bonus on a Friday or something like that. I know Alec Lewis is going to be with me as we really dig into Vikings reporting on the 20th. That's a Sunday. Most of the team reporting on Tuesday, the 22nd. And then 9 to noon, our first show from training camp will be a week from tomorrow. And so we'll be in Egan, and the construction of the dream, or since the Super Bowl is being played at Levi, the construction of the jeans will take place starting a week from tomorrow. So I was kind of surprised. So I found a list, the management mandated list of the day. I found this from NFL.com and a gentleman by the name of Grant Gordon. And the question is this: could one of these 7 NFL franchises finally celebrate their first Super Bowl era MVP in 2025? How about that for a list in the middle of July on a Tuesday morning when it is sunny and it is sticky? So Gordon will explain to you, and I did not know this, and it starts out, there's always got to be an intro, and explain why.
Been drinking. Does that sound right? Does that sound about right? That sounds great. That checks out. That checks out.
Explaining the Eagles, Super Bowl champions, chance of repeat, this, that, and the other thing. Only one player in Eagles history, Norm Van Brocklin, we know that name, 1960, has been voted league MVP in the history of the Birds. How about that? You go to B-Dubs, you play a little trivia, keep that Norm Van Brocklin 1960 nugget in your pocket. That's free, by the way. Thanks for listening to 9 to noon. So I was not aware. And this is something that's always, we have Adrian Peterson, 2012, of course. Maybe the last, is the last non-quarterback to win the NFL MVP. We know that. That's another nugget for your pocket. But there are 7 teams who have never had a league MVP in the Super Bowl era specifically. And that would be the Eagles. That would be the Cards, the Texans, the Jags, the Saints, Jets, and Bucks. How about that list? Murderer's Row, to be sure. So here's what they say as part of this list. And this is where the MVP for me, it always feels like, specifically these days, it's usually a 3-horse race. That race being the 3 previous winners Whether it's Josh Allen, it's Lamar, who's won a couple, Mr. Mahomes, who's won a couple. Always feels like a 3 or a 4 horse race, but how deep do we want to dive? Well, it's a Tuesday in July, Brett. It's a Tuesday in July. So we'll start here via the mandatory abyss list. The Arizona Cardinals. Could it be the year that Kyler Murray is the MVP?
Above average at that.
Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. Gordon says this. It's the third season for Murray and Drew Petzing's offense. Now, you know, if you listen to Night to Noon, we love Drew Petzing. Ivy League trained, offensive mind, has been an assistant at, it feels like if there is a spot to be an assistant on an NFL team, Drew Petzing has spent at least a season doing it. But now, it's the third year for Murray, specifically with Drew Petzing being the OC. And now we have, of course, Jonathan Gannon, head coach. Oh, weird. That's a familiar name. He was pounding on the glass at U.S. Bank Stadium as the miracle unfolded. As Stephon Diggs was being mobbed in the tunnel and mayhem ensued as part of the Minneapolis Miracle, you had eventual offensive coordinator of the Minnesota Vikings and then head coach, two-time coach of the year, Kevin Stefanski, stoic, just standing there, fist in the air, soaking it in, and walking his way eventually to the elevator to hit the locker room. And then you had eventual defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles and now head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. At one point, the DB coach for the Minnesota Vikings, maybe assistant DB's coach at that time, Jonathan Gannon, losing his freaking mind. And it was beautiful. I thought for myself, what would I have been? 33-ish? Yeah, 7-8 years ago, so 32, 33. I thought I was acting completely uncivilized in the moment as people were, as you heard on the call, trying to climb into the Vox box and hug us all. That courtesy of Paul Allen. Yes! He wasn't lying, by the way. It's what he does. He describes the scene in front of him. And it was a mob scene. But Jonathan Gannon, moving his way into a DB coach role, moving his way into D.C. Now he is the HC in Arizona. Kyler Murray, sensational skill set, it says, has led him to 2 Pro Bowls in 6 seasons. Love those Pro Bowls. Impressive statistics. 4 seasons, 3,700 plus passing yards, 400 plus rushing yards. I think he's had a season. I don't have his stats in front of me, and I can rip that up in a second here, but the rushing TDs, key part of the bid for him. The scrambling, it's exhausting. We jokingly say that he'll throw up a couple arm punts every single game. But he's piloted the Cards to just 1 playoff appearance. That's a problem. In a pivotal year for the Cardinals regime, Murray will need to lead the way. Should he reach and maintain his prime form while keen in Arizona ascent, an MVP conversation is to be had. Now, the key here is, and this is why I like this list, is because it's specific to these 7 NFL franchises who have never won or never had, a regular season MVP. So the key to this is not, well, are you out of your mind? Kyler Murray has no chance to be MVP. Maybe you're correct. But if the Arizona Cardinals are going to have an MVP in 2025, well, who else is it going to be on that particular team? For an 8-9 team sitting in the NFC West, I mean, the key to this, right, is the division with Kyler Murray. So first, you're probably finding your way to the NFC West crown, which means we saw what we saw from the Rams, and we actually expect that to potentially get better. So they got to jump a double-digit win Rams team with Puka till you're satisfied. Oh, by the way, Jared Verse and Kobe Turner, and we saw what they did to our offensive line in that playoff game. They got to jump the Seahawks. I think that actually is doable. And then you need you need the Niners to somewhere, to find their way into an 8-9 win purgatory-like season. So you have to have that happen. And then additionally, again, you're talking about the best season of one Kyler Murray's career. And it is, 3,800 yards, James Conner, it's Trey McBride. How about Trey McBride? Had nearly, 100 catches or something ridiculous without scoring a touchdown last year. That was amusing. Defense has to get a little bit better. And Marvin Harrison Jr. certainly could be part of that conversation in terms of what he's going to be able to do and ascend as he continues his career. The 8 TDs, you dig that. You don't dig just 62 receptions. So you need so many things to get better with that team. What do you think? What do you think, Brett, about Kyler Murray potentially being an MVP candidate for the previous MVP lists, Arizona Cardinals?
Well, I think you nailed it in the sense that he's the most likely, because who else are you looking at on the Cardinals? I was looking, and he's not the most outlandish on this list. That's a tease for later, but he's probably not in the top 2 on this list either.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's one of those things that he just looks like he's wearing a backpack running around sometimes. I don't know. But
wearing a backpack?
Have you ever seen him run? It looks like he's got a really heavy backpack on. Yeah, you'll never see him run the same way again. Yeah, I don't know. He's good, and he's got his moments, and he's got his flashes. I was looking at his stats because you brought them up. And, I mean, 21 touchdowns, 11 picks last year, a rating of 93.5, which is all... It's fine on a about 500 team. Yeah. That's about what you'd see. So MVP logistic chances, absolutely not. But on that team, he's certainly the most likely.
Yeah, the 11 picks are going to have to go down. The 21 passing TDs are going to have to go up. And from a standpoint of just overall W's and L's, again, he's going to have to put this team in a spot where they're not only contending for the West, but they have to be contending for a bye week. And that is a tall task for Mr. Murray. Uber talented, coming off the injury, should be in a better spot now, a full year and change removed. But that's going to be a difficult one for him. But I always root for Drew Petzing, and I root for Jonathan Gannon. Except for when we play their team, then we hope it's arm punts galore. That's all part of an Abyss list, a management-mandated list, in fact. Could one of these 7 NFL franchises finally celebrate their first Super Bowl era MVP in 2025? As Brett mentioned, some of these things border on the inane, the mundane, and the insane, and we will continue that around the corner before Dan Hayes joins us at 10 a.m. It's Nordo in for...
I've got Dan Morgan here on the pod. Say hi, Dan.
Hey, how's it going today?
It's going good, man. Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Dan Morgan. I'm an attorney and a managing partner at Morgan & Morgan, which is America's largest injury law firm.
That's pretty awesome. I think I saw a billboard of yours recently that said 20 billion won. 20 billion is an insane number.
Yeah, 20 billion recovered. It's actually, I think, somewhere north, probably closer to 22, 23 after this year. And each year we get bigger and badder and our army grows. So the number will hopefully keep getting bigger and bigger as time goes on.
Awesome. So how does someone get in contact with Morgan & Morgan? What would I do if I got into an accident?
Probably the easiest way is dialing pound law. That's pound 529 from your cell phone. We are always open. Our call center is always waiting to take your call. 24/7, 365.
Wow. Dan Morgan from Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm. Thanks for coming by the show.
Thanks for having me.
Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
PA on the fan.
If you want to chime into what's happening with your favorite KFAN shows, you can make your voice heard on the Brad Sean Bryant KFAN text line. So let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That is 64686. Standard text message, 888 supply.
Welcome back. It's Nordo in for PA 9 to noon. Management mandated list. I found one. Presented a bit of it last segment. Could one of these 7 NFL franchises finally celebrate their first Super Bowl era MVP here in 2025? Mentioned a total of 7 teams: Cards, Texans, Jags, Saints, Jets, and Bucks, along with the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. They've never had a league MVP in the Super Bowl era. 60th time's the charm, maybe for the Minnesota Vikings, but these 7 teams are just trying to get an MVP. And it's a management mandated list. But I got to be honest with you, Brett, I don't want to do the list anymore. I don't want to do the list
Just
anymore.
like that.
I just got, so what are the odds that Kyler, what is his MVP odds?
So I did look that up. Most outlets, basically every outlet but one, has him at plus 5,000.
Plus 5,000. So 50 to 1.
So he's hovering around Caleb Williams,
Yeah.
Dak Prescott. Yeah.
He's not going to be the MVP. Again, 3 to 4 horse race. I was thinking, from a Viking standpoint, if, as Vikings fans, is there an MVP candidate on the Minnesota Vikings this season? And the issue with that, when we talk about the MVP, and just to go through this list, you mentioned there are some names on here that are, it's tough.
They're out there.
It's tough to wrap your head around. Again, these are 7 teams who have never had a league MVP. And it's specific to those 7 teams. And I mentioned Kyler with the Cards. CJ Stroud is actually, from my standpoint, and what are his odds? Because I think that is a reasonable conversation to have with him.
Yeah, he's about half that of
So he's about 25 to
25.
1. Okay.
2,500 plus 25.
So he's not going to win the MVP either. But you think about kind of the sophomore slump that he had, the dearth of talent that he had in the wide receiving core at various times. Stephon tears the ACL. Nico Collins, if I remember correctly, I think it was a hammy. He was out for a number of weeks. Tank Dell with the nasty leg break. That may have been at Arrowhead against the Chiefs. He had a nasty run. And now this is a team, Joe Mixon, 1,000-yard rusher a year ago, although, it just seems like to have a competent run game, 1,000 no longer feels like the floor for that. But at any rate, they get a G unit out of him. They pick up Nick Chubb, Charch's favorite guy, Damian Pierce is in the mix. They drafted a kid, Jaden Higgins, to catch. They took Christian Kirk, I think, from the Jaguars. That's an interesting name. If one of these teams was going to have their first Super Bowl era MVP, might be CJ Stroud. Well, then you get to Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, and I just don't know what to say about that because it felt like they paid him just to give him the money. They paid him because they had to give him the money. Similar if you look in Miami, what is the other option than re-upping a Tua, who we love Tua. We love Tua till we're satisfied 9 to noon. But the head injuries and the inconsistency with him is a problem. But they were in a spot where contract time, negotiations, resetting the market, they pay him $200 million. But then things get weird with the Saints. Again, this is based on teams that have never had a league MVP. Chris Olave. Oof. Yeah.
I'm still scrolling to try to find his odds. That's how low we're going here.
They drafted Tyler Shuck. I think it's Shuck or Shook. He will be shook with this disaster that's taking place down in the Bayou. Kellen Moore, best of luck. Tough spot for Kellen Moore, by the way. You work hard. You generate, for better or worse, Kellen Moore generates high-end offenses. Lighten up the stat sheets in Dallas. Did the same thing with the Eagles. And now he's taking this job down in New Orleans. It's not going to be Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks returns to the Saints. Was he with Houston last year? I forget. He's been on like 7 or 8 teams. He's been a 1,000-yard receiver, I think, for 4 or 5 different teams. It's not going to be Brandon Cooks. It's not going to be Kamara. Could be Kamara, but it's not going to be. So that's the spot the Saints are in. Justin Fields with the Jets. It's not going to happen. Have you found odds for Justin Fields?
Yes. I know he's on here. I've seen it. I was still looking, just trying to find Olave. Fields is as low as plus 10,000, as high as plus 15,000.
Okay. Yeah. So 100 to 1.
Yeah.
150 to 1. What about Baker Mayfield?
Let's see. I've seen him as well. Baker, you can get him on some outlets as low as plus 2,500.
Okay, 25 to 1.
As high as 3,500.
Okay.
So, yeah.
25, 35 to 1. So middle of the pack. Not going to win. But then there's Jalen Hurts. Where is Jalen Hurts at?
He's pretty high up. You can get him for around 2,000. So 20
still
to 1.
Just 20 to 1.
Yeah.
So it's probably still, it's a Lamar conversation, a Josh Allen conversation. He won it last year.
So
Patrick Mahomes.
So here's the top guys: Allen, Lamar, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, and then you get into Jalen Hurts, Herbert, Jordan Love. Yeah.
See, and that's where, all jokes aside, to Chris Olave, badass receiver. He just plays on a team with a dearth of talent. The trying to loop it into as Vikings fans. Hey, J.J. McCarthy making his first starts in the NFL. Very low. I assume he's got to be in that 50 to 1 range.
JJ?
Yeah.
And that being McCarthy. You can get him as low right now on some outlets at 50 to 1.
Yeah, 50 to 1.
But you can get him as high as 150 to 1 on some outlets.
So the MVP caliber player on this team would be Justin Jefferson, the other JJ, the Jets of the equation. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the last segment, the Vikings had Adrian Peterson run for 2,000 yards in 2012, 9 yards shy. If he could have just broken one more tackle, he beats Dickerson. But he didn't. Then you have Christian Ponder throwing bounce passes over the middle at Lambeau, and team bows out in the wild card. But that's the last non-quarterback MVP of the NFL. And that's where, even in this conversation, whether it's the 7 teams or any team, the frustrating factor for some is in 2021, you have Aaron Rodgers, your guy. Your guy wins MVP. That was his 3rd or 4th. I think he won it 2 years in a row, in fact. But 2021, he wins it. Good year for Aaron Rodgers that year. Typical 4,000 plus yards, 37 TDs. And really, until his last year with the Pack, he didn't throw a lot of picks.
No.
I think he had less than 5 interceptions that year.
He had the Jordan Love size chip on his shoulder in 2021. He started. He did. Well, he was pissed.
No, he was indeed. Good for Aaron. Best of luck in Pittsburgh. But meanwhile, Cooper Kupp in 2021 has 145 receptions, nearly 2,000 yards receiving, 16 touchdowns. And that would be, when we're talking about 1947, we're talking about the buck 45. These are historic type numbers for a wide receiver. And he doesn't win it. Now, the Rams would go on to win the Super Bowl. Now, the Super Bowl does not impact the MVP award. But in that respect, in that case, Cooper Kupp has a historic season at the wide receiver spot and gets clipped by A-Rod. Now let's go to last year. Now, he did truly carry this team at times. There's no arguing that. The post Gabe Davis, the post Stephon Diggs era had begun with the Buffalo Bills. And now he's throwing to Khalil Shakir. He's throwing to Keon Coleman, the rookie last year. He's got the tight ends, Kincaid, Sweet. I think Knox still exists. And Josh Allen's your 2024 league MVP. Now, the problem with that, and he threw, you had 500 yards and 12 TDs on the ground. So that's 12. And then you look at what he was doing through the air, and he's got 3,700 yards, 28 TDs. So he's responsible for 40 total touchdowns, just 6 picks. That was a key for him, limiting the turnovers. I don't have the number of fumbles, but that had been an issue. Is for Josh Allen, the next step in his career is stop giving the ball to the other freaking team. Things are going to go well for your squad. And for the most part, he did that. He mitigated. Down from 18 picks the year before. He went from 18 to 6. That's not bad. Well, meanwhile, you have Saquon Barkley running for 2,000 yards. So the hill that a non-quarterback has to climb to get into the MVP conversation at all seems unattainable, seems unachievable in those respects. So the Florios of the world that complain about this being a quarterback award, they're absolutely dead on. So who would be the MVP candidate for the Minnesota Vikings? You hear about a J.J. McCarthy, those odds being at 50 to 1. What are Justin Jefferson's odds?
Well,
do you have that?
That's exactly what I was going to tell you, because J.J. McCarthy has better odds than Justin Jefferson, as you'd imagine. Well, I guess it's about the same, but he's way further down. It's about 150 to 1 for JJ to win the MVP.
So JJ McCarthy trying to find his way in the NFL. Jordan Addison, let's say this case goes the wrong way and he's suspended, or maybe, not the wrong way, but the way in which he is found culpable for his actions and has to pay the piper. He gets a three game suspension. So kid coming out of the gates, we got Nookie Blanky with the tight end, but in the end, it's feed 18, feed 18, feed 18. And the ebbs and flows of J.J. McCarthy's season in one way are stabilized and highlighted by a team winning games and potentially historic numbers for Justin Jefferson. If Justin Jefferson had 2,000 receiving yards and 20 touchdowns, an above average high end season from any quarterback is going to beat those odds. And so whether it's this abyss list that I found, Chris Olave, I mean, come on, that's the state of the Saints. That's not Grant Gordon's fault. That's the state of the Saints. But that's the frustrating factor for an MVP award that has effectively become a quarterback club. Will we ever see a non-QB MVP ever again? And it feels like at this particular juncture, the answer is no. All right. We did what the bosses told us.
Got through it.
And we had an abyss list. You're welcome, Chad Abbott. When we return, Dan Hayes covers the Twins for The Athletic, and we're going to jump into whether it's the All-Star festivities, a team that just went on into the break, a team on the brink, potentially, and they drafted a guy that's 6'11", and maybe we'll see him in 5 years. Very much a baseball-heavy conversation with Dan Hayes as the second hour begins around the corner. It's 9 to noon.